Well, Manfred, welcome to the garage. Appreciate you coming and joining us, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me in the garage. I feel
So,
like I've spent many days, many fine days in the garage.
I never leave. We've never left. Been in a lot of
Yeah.
bands. We've never left the garage. Uh,
Excellent.
well, let's just jump in and get going here. Manfred, you not only co-founder of the Woggles, correct?
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh, DJ on our favorite radio show, of course, Little
Well,
Stevens,
thanks.
and
Yeah.
at SiriusXM, and also you do some stuff with Wicked Cool Records too, Manfred?
The band, the Woggles, are on Wicked Cool Records.
Okay. Now, all right, Manfred, let's get started. Start
Sure.
off. Are you from Athens, Georgia? Is that correct?
I'm from Georgia originally. Yeah, I was born in Warm Springs. That's the home of the Little White House.
Okay.
FDR's stomping ground years
Yep.
ago. Not
Yep.
many remember that in these days, but
Right.
For those folks back then, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
So I was born there, just one other baby in the maternity ward, and then I grew up around Atlanta.
Okay.
A lot of years in Stone Mountain. Used to watch the fireworks, 4th of July fireworks from the top of my neighborhood over the Stone Mountain. And then later on, my family moved to the other end of the county, and I graduated high school there.
So when did you migrate from Georgia out to the West Coast?
Oh, let's think. Let's see, I went up to Athens to finish off my college days. So I got up there around, I guess, the fall of '85. And the band started in, I guess, the fall of '87. Is that right?
Okay. Yeah,
That's got to be right. Yeah, that's right. Fall of '87, and then the first single came out in 1990. And then let's think here. So I guess about 1995, '96 is when I moved from Athens to Atlanta. And then most of the guys in the band were living then in Atlanta, 3 out of the 4. And then in 2006, I moved to Los Angeles with my wife at the time and my daughter.
Okay. Now I have to ask, record collector, did you move all your vinyl during all these moves, or has it kind of gotten away from you?
Well, it has to be moved. It has to be moved. I mean,
Yeah.
you guys, no soldier gets left behind. Certainly
That's
not
right.
in the rock and roll
Right.
army. You know.
Exactly.
That's right. We wanted to ask Manfred if you are a little bit of a crate digger. I'm a collector. I probably got,
Yeah.
10,000 LPs, thousands of 45s.
Oh, yeah, sure, of course, right, yeah. I mean, sometimes, to me, when I'm collecting records, it's not as always important what the album is as to what the song is,
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
so,
Right.
So then not some artists' catalogs I'm not completist about. I mean, if I come across those things, and that's fine, I'm sure I can pick it up, but I'm seeking out certain songs and generally.
That's kind of how I am with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you said you started out in
So
'85
Craig,
in Athens.
what's that, Craig?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to ask you, Troy had mentioned having around, what was it, 10,000 records?
Yeah, about 10,000 LPs.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Craig, yourself?
I got about 100 albums.
He's a novice.
I'm more the digital age kind of collector. So I
That's okay,
see out
I
the
forgive
songs. I appreciate it.
No problem.
You know,
So
but
no, I don't have 10,000 records. I mean, I do have, like an IKEA kind of thing filled up with LPs.
Calyx,
Oh, yeah.
And I've got a bunch of 45s and 7-inches in a cabinet in a bunch of different boxes.
The reason I bring that up, Manfred, is I thought that, working with the Underground Garage, the radio DJ, I'm always on the hunt for something new,
Yeah.
old or new, either one. And a lot of
Right.
times it's fun to find a big old box of 45s that other people haven't, that are there, that are artifact almost from the time.
Right. Sometimes they don't smell very good, but you got to jump on in there.
That's right.
You got to jump on in there.
That's
And then
right.
sometimes you find you look through stuff and it's so depressing, you know, some of the stuff you're going through. But then you find the one record there could be fairly hammered, but you know, it was well loved. You know, if that was it's like a fun song, you think, man, think about the great story that was on there. Especially like there's like a cigarette butt kind of burn on the edge or something like that. That must have been a good time going on.
Yeah, beer stain on the label, you know.
Right.
Which
Yeah,
that's
that
rock
record
and roll.
doesn't belong to Debbie, you know, she writes on it.
That's right. That's right.
Probably somebody a little bit older than that.
But that's half the fun. I mean, I love discovering new stuff. And I guess what Craig and I always search for this and think you are this, Manfred, is authenticity. It seems like you are authentic lover of rock and roll. You're not,
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
you know, and Little Steven the same way. It's not just it's a show. No, there's a love there and a passion.
Yeah. Well, let me rephrase that. What do you mean? How did you say that it's not a show, it's a love, it's a passion? What do you mean by show?
Well, I mean, like there's some syndicated radio shows where I've been doing radio forever. I'm a school counselor now, but the guys had lost interest. They were burned out. They didn't really care. They were just
right.
You know, they were just
going through the
stuff.
motions.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's sad.
Yeah. I will say it's
might
nice.
as well be driving a bus, not to put bus drivers down at all. But you know, you might why be in the driver's seat with the wheels of steel if you're not going to
that's
give directions? You know what I mean? Take us for the trip. You know?
It's nice that there's people out there that like music like we like music, and I think that when you play stuff, I always find something new that I hadn't heard before, or something that I've heard that I don't hear it anywhere else. So it's always refreshing when you discover things like that. You know, like.
Absolutely.
Manfred, take us through a show prep. Like, how do you get it ready for a show? Do you do a lot of how much research do you do? If you could.
Sure. So the show is 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and I have to pull everything that I play out of Little Steven's playbook. So now, before XM and Sirius were merged, I could actually play records straight out of my collection.
Right.
I'd have to take the time on my own to digitize them, send them to a guy in New York at Sirius, and he would, convert it to a special WAV file that they use. It's not a commonplace WAV file. But then when the companies merged, I mean, they fired a lot of people and think that everything got a lot tighter. So instead, what I have to do is songs I'd already entered in the system, they're already in the playbook. And after that, I have to pitch songs, right?
Right.
So, and there are categories. I mean, there's the Beatles and Rolling Stones are going to have to be played every hour. Certain other artists every other hour within the course of the program. And so I figure out, who I want to play, what I have played, and sort through that. And then when I've come up with a playlist what I'm going to play, then I'll figure out, want to talk about different things and sort that out. So a 3-hour show, including recording the voice tracks, it takes about 5 hours.
Yeah. That's about, I can see that. When I was on the last station I actually worked at full time, we had color coded, like a certain song was a blues song, and from 4:15 to 4:30 you had to play a blues song.
Right.
That makes sense. I mean,
it does make sense. I mean, now the radio I did before Steven's channel, that was all non-commercial college radio stuff. I worked at a proper non-commercial classical station, but the other two stations I worked at were student-run stations, and both of them were great, but they did have loose rotations into heavies and mediums and lights and things. You could still choose off of an album what track to play, provided that it hadn't been played within so many hours ahead of time and stuff.
Right. Right. Now, as far as official garage stuff, my gateway drug, I don't know about you, Craig, it was Nuggets. It was Lenny K's Nuggets that, I mean, I'd heard a lot of the songs, but that was the same for you, Manfred, or?
Well, so that's the thing. So when I guess for me, rock and roll started with a clock radio, right? Just a little clock radio. It's what I had in my bedroom. And my parents, well, I think my mom, for some reason, this seems kind of crazy now in hindsight, but our family got a tape recorder. Okay, we had a tape recorder, cassette tape recorder, and it had an external microphone. And so my mom got this tape recorder to record Christmas mornings. So for several years, she would have the tape recorder set up, and later when we played it back, all you could hear was kind of mumbling and a lot of paper opening and, oh, I can't believe it.
Right.
But there was no description of what was going on.
Nobody knew what it was.
So it kind of lost its meaning. But the other 364 days a year, it wasn't getting used. And so, I had to beg to use this difficult piece of equipment, right? Could easily be broken, I was told, right? And so with the fear of God in me, I took it up and I had that external microphone pointed at the little speaker on the clock radio. And then when the songs would come on and it was, oh, this is my song, I would turn it on and make these little cassette tapes of it. And so, this is like beginning around 9 or 10. And then there's this epiphany around 11 where I realized, and I would religiously listen to Casey Kasem's American Top 40, but the epiphany was, gosh, the songs I like never seem to do very well. They never seem to go very far up on the chart. They're kind of in the middle and then they fall off. And around the same time, I discovered that on the record dial, you had to turn the dial on the clock radio, that all the way on the left end, there was all this cool stuff happening, right? Yeah, and so in Atlanta, we had not only a couple of college stations, but also there was it's still there, I believe, WRFG, standing for Radio Free Georgia. And every morning, Monday through Friday, from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., they would play just straight up blues. And they had all sorts of other block programming going on. So I started hearing that, and that was like blowing my little mind. And then WRAS, which is Georgia State's radio station, for many years, it was the only 100,000 watt full power college radio station. And several years ago, there was a weird thing where the administration took it away, and it was a terrible story. I won't go into that now, but for many years when I worked there, it was incredible. But they had two oldies shows there that were kind of misnamed. One was called Reelin' in the Years, which was like late 60s, early 70s. And the other was called Flashback, which was the 50s show. Okay, so it was on Flashback that I heard Bo Diddley's I'm a Man. And that was like completely, I'd heard the Yardbirds version, which I like, but the visceralness of Bo Diddley's version was just from another planet, right? So now I'm like, this is around 12, it's about 12. And so I started buying, Bo Diddley records. And I'm definitely in high school now, Bo Diddley, and I remember getting like Devo records, but it was really this oldie stuff that was like really communicating to me. So then I go to college and I started working at WRAS, the Georgia State station. And so the garage rock epiphany was actually hearing the Boston band The Liars.
Okay.
Right? And I had no idea that there were contemporary bands playing this kind of music to me, which when I heard the Bo Diddley or this early Chuck Berry, I didn't think of it as being an oldie. It just seems so immediate and grabbing to me. That's just timeless, right? And I queued up Help You Ann from The Liars, and it completely blew my mind. I was like, my God, how can this be?
Right.
This is like a new album? People can do this now? And of course they can do this now. I'm a testament to that sad state of affairs. But yes, so that was a big moment. So that same year of when I started working at WRAS, a friend of mine, Craig Phillips, he lent me a Pretty Things compilation. It was like on Sire, had 2 LPs of Pretty Things stuff, and that Nuggets double album, and some other it's like some compilation records that were from radio stations from around the late 70s or early 70s, like Me and You and a Dog Named Boo, and that, what is that, the song, come on down to my boat, baby, come on down, we'll sail away. What is that?
Is that the Standells?
No, come on down to my boat, baby, down, we'll sail away, fish on it.
Oh, sure. Anyway, we'll get it. We'll edit it in. What is it?
Yeah. I'm almost there. But things of that nature, and there's another one too. Anyway, but it's kind of bubblegumish, but also kind of garage at the same time, like Music Explosion stuff. But from that era. So he lent me those records all around that time. So that's when I first was like, oh my God, the Nuggets thing. Yeah.
Well, Manfred, now I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night. That song's going to be in my head, and I'm going to get it. It's going to be like, oh, what is that? What is that going to be? Well, they, I don't know where to draw a lot of, but the Nuggets, for our listeners out there, Rhino has a lot of Nuggets box. They're out of print right now, but there's Nuggets, there's Children of Nuggets, 90s stuff, where the action is. There's a lot of great music on there that was really kind of wasn't heard a lot on the radio, maybe regional. Now, that's another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about. Craig, I don't know if you guys remember or not, but radio used to be owned locally, so you would have regional hits like the Rugbies out of Louisville, You and I. That was a pretty pretty big hit. You had local bands could actually get on the radio. I don't know if you experienced that.
Well, so in Atlanta, the college stations would allow local bands to play. Yeah. But the downside to Atlanta is that's where Lee Abrams, and I can't think of the guy he worked with, but they came up with the AOR format, and their flagship station was 96 Rock in Atlanta. And those are the guys that destroyed rock and roll, right?
Yes.
They came up with focus groups. Okay, well, that's not such a bad idea in general, but when they kept using the focus groups, so as it turned out, people didn't want to hear things they didn't already know. So when they were asked, what would you rather hear, the ninth or sixth album, or would you rather hear Elvis Costello and the Attractions? And people were like, well, I don't know what Elvis Costello is, but I know what Styx is.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that you're exactly right. To me, that's what killed rock and roll. I mean, not killed it. I mean, it's still the music's out there. There's still great bands out there. Yeah. It's just hard to find. It's unearthing.
Right. So in that's when the college radio became sort of a bigger thing, breaking bands and then soon after that, there for a while was alternative radio format started up because of the success of the more notice the college radio stations were getting. But when I was a teen, it was 96 Rock, and by that time they'd they were squeezing out all kinds of regional aspects.
Well, and to me that loses what we were talking about earlier, the authenticity.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? That authentic, as you said with Bo Diddley, there's something about it just grabs your soul. It's real, it's pure. And on our show, what Craig and I do, we may play something that was recorded last week, and then something was recorded 70 years ago.
Yeah.
It's music.
Well, it gets back to what we're talking about. I mean, the best rock and roll having a timeless sense to it.
Right.
Yep.
You hear those chords and, you're not thinking, oh, wait a minute, I think he's got a flange on that. This is probably 1980, such and such. It just, the music itself speaks to you, you know, and you just get stuck in your head in a good way,
So what brought about you getting into a band? Were the Woggles like your first band or?
Yeah, pretty much. So for 2 years I went to Georgia State University, which is in downtown Atlanta, and then I transferred up to Athens, and I finished my undergraduate there. And in the dorms, in our dorm, Reed Hall, some guys, we formed a band and played like a party, and that was it.
Yeah.
But a couple of those guys also wound up working at the student radio station where I worked at, which was WUOG 90.5 FM. And so when we were all working there together, and at that time coming through town was like the Fleshtones were very big when they would come through, and the Liars. Finally got to see the Liars a couple of years after first hearing that album. The Flat Duo Jets that's when they first started being active in the area, and the Dexter Romweber lived there for a while in Athens. But and Athens actually had a very vibrant local music scene.
Sure, yeah.
For the most part, those bands really weren't playing the kind of stuff that cumulatively we enjoyed the most, right? The groups and artists that I just mentioned.
Yeah.
And so we went ahead and formed the Woggles at that point. And then the name itself taking on sort of a nonsensical, idea to it in a fun sense, and also the call letters being WUOG. So that all kind of played and seemed to make sense.
Right.
And, it's also like there's like Styx McGee and his drinking buddies have a song, Wiggle Woggle Woo, and or at least it's not in the title, it's in the lyric. But anyway, stuff like that.
He does say woggle in that song, yeah.
He sings it, yeah. So that was the genesis of the band, and wanting to perform is sort of fun music that we didn't really hear going on locally, and plus that way we could get in free to see our favorite artists when they came through town, if we could open for them.
Right. Sure. Right. It's always a plus.
Yeah.
We talked to Billy Baker, and Billy is just a drum buddy of ours. Craig and I are both drummers, so ate up with it.
Well, that's the most important man on the stage.
Right.
That's right, man.
Right. So what are your favorite drummer jokes?
Oh, you can tell which way the stage is leaning by the drool coming out, all that stuff. Yeah. I don't think they're funny. I don't think it's funny. No.
Well, Craig, what's your favorite drummer joke?
Oh, I don't know any.
All right. Here's what. Wait. What's this? Well, this was like. You can tell it's the drummer because it speeds up and slows down. It's knocking at the
door. That's great. That's
great. A gift for you.
I will use that. Yes.
I'm going to write that one down so I don't forget it.
Yeah.
Did you start off as a drummer, Manfred?
No,
no.
Okay. But I have sat behind the drum at practice. The drums are behind at practice and stuff, and kept the beat. Yeah. And then it's like, well, that's enough of that. I'm tired. But
it is. It really is. Yeah. Hey, before I forget, Craig, I may have turned you on to this. Have you guys seen this book? I just found it. I'm reading it right now. It's by a Louisiana State prof.
Oh, great.
I don't know if can you guys see that?
Garage rock from the 50s to the present. Is that what it says? Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's really good, and it's pretty authentic.
Authentic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
Easy for me to say.
Yes,
thank you very much. Thank you very much. But
so wait a minute, Troy. You mentioned being a drummer, and that makes sense because I see all these drums behind you there. Where are you exactly?
I have a record room here, Manfred. I'll show you around. This is my record room. That's my Beatles shrine, turntable, amp, and this is my downstairs.
Okay.
Yeah, but I collect vintage drums. So I've got Rogers and Gretsch and Ludwig and Slingerland and Camco. I made up with it.
Oh, that's great. The drummer in the Woggles, he plays looks kind of like a Ringo set because he, covered it. But it's actually just some no-name Japanese kit that he got when he was 11, maybe he was 10. But his dad had a country band, and the problem was that they would have to do several sets a night, and by the second set, his regular drummer was too drunk to play. So he figured, if I can get my boys to play drums.
Yeah.
And so that's how he started.
See, those MIJ kits are nice. Those MIJ kits are nice. I mean, for what they are, they're great kits. I've heard drummers just sound fantastic on them.
Yeah.
I have one set. The only drum set I've ever owned. So.
And what is it?
It's a 1968 Ludwig set. I got it in 1988 when I was 15, and that's the only set I've ever had. So,
well, Dan, our drummer, that set that he got when he was 10, that is still his primary set.
Yeah.
And his dad, I think, came across like a set on the side of the road at some point years after he was in the band, and he said, yeah, get it for me. I'll pay you back later, just so he would have a second kit. Yeah. But it's always that same kit that he's always played on. And I guess what's interesting is we'll come to a club, and the sound guy is all about, not wanting to have to do any work. And he's like, oh, yeah, I've got the house kit here. And Dan will be like, no, I'm going to use my own kit. Well, it'll really save out a lot of time. It won't save any time because I'm going to go really, really slow setting up your kit.
Right.
Or I can go really, really fast setting up my kit.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, gear, we always do a gear section, Manfred. What kind of guitar do you play?
Oh, I don't play guitar. I just play with myself, basically, I guess. And I play some harmonica, and I shake a mean tambourine. Boy, can I shake that tambourine.
You and the lemon
Somebody's got to do it.
That's right. What?
Somebody has to do it.
Somebody has to do it. Oh, yeah. And I tell you what, when people are in the way and you're got that windmill going on with that tambourine, they move out. They get out of the way. Oh, yeah.
Manfred, what's on tap for the Woggles? I know everything's on hiatus right now, but do you any plans coming up soon, or that you know of?
Well, so back in February, first of all, let's back up. So last year we lost our guitar player, the Fleshhammer, Jeff Walls. He also played in Guadalcanal Diary, and he had been when we did that first single in 1990, he was the producer of that, and with him, I had written a couple of songs, and he had produced a lot of the recordings. And then in 2003, our guitar player at that time, the mighty Montague, George Montague Holton, passed away, and he had, that was related to his diabetes. And then Jeff stepped in as the Fleshhammer, and he had sat in with a band before. And then last year, just out of the blue, it turns out it was pancreatic cancer. And, that was misdiagnosed, but the only upside of the misdiagnosis was that had he known it was pancreatic cancer, it never would have been made public. But they thought that he was going to need this rare disease where he would need a double lung transplant. And so he was waiting for that. There wasn't money to do that, so money had to be raised. So that meant he had to go public with all of this. Now, the good thing about that was he was able to reconnect with all kinds of friends and fans and really get a sense of how much his music had touched people.
Right, the love.
And right, exactly. And if he hadn't have had to do that, it would have been a very private affair, and he would have been fine with that. But it really was. The way it turned out in that sense was best. And another important thing was he was never in any pain from the cancer, actually. And when he passed away, it was literally like he went to sleep.
Wow.
And, so it's all very sad still, but as bad as that was, we're happy with with what, the most positive aspects of a terrible situation.
Yeah.
So our plan for this year was we would get together with some of our guitar playing friends and record songs with different players. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so the first was Little Steven, and that was in February. And so we went up to New York City, and we recorded at Steven's studio. There is also where his office is, where most of his Sirius folks are working there. I mean, Sirius has its own studios, obviously, but the people I work with coordinating things, they're all working for Steven and not actually Sirius. And adjacent to that office is his studio. And so he was the guitar player for the session. He also produced the session. And what was great about that is that he had he worked very similar to Jeff Walls, really. Mm-hmm. And just very smart. His playing was very good. I thought it was really cool that he made a point before we got there to go back over his Woggles catalog, and made a real effort to get a sound that was sympathetic to what we do, right? it doesn't sound like the Woggles via Southside Johnny, right? It sounds
right. True professional musician.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. And so we had done like half a dozen songs as a demo, and he picked the song that was the most least thought out, most thrown together, because that's how that stuff always works.
Of course.
And that was one of the bass player Patrick, Buzz Hackstrom. That's one of his songs, so that was very cool. And then the B side, we decided to before this had come together, I had asked Stephen several years ago. He had worked with gotten Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil to submit a song for Darlene Love's album in 2015.
Yeah. Yep.
And I thought, wow, out of those Brill Building songwriters, that couple is my favorite because they wrote the most rocking tunes, right? I mean, Kicks and We Got to Get Out of This Place and Hungry, Shape of Things to Come. That's all Barry Mann, Cynthia Weil. And so my question to Stephen was there some song they wrote for the Animals or Paul Revere that didn't get used? I mean, let's do it, right? And so that came to naught. He had reached out to him and hadn't got anything back. But on that Darlene Love record, the song that he did with her is called Sweet Freedom. And so he said, hey, I've never been able to get back in touch with them. What do you guys think about doing Sweet Freedom? And now, obviously, I am not Darlene Love, as you can see. Or do I sound like Darlene Love? But what we could do is turn it into a rock and roll song. Her version very horn driven, and ours, of course, guitar based, and we rock it up. And I think it came out pretty cool. So very happy with both sides of that. So that was recorded in the middle of February, and I'm certain at that moment, just a couple of miles away, tragically, this whole virus thing was percolating. Yeah. So we were lucky that, nothing befell any of us. We got out of there, and then the single came out in June on Wicked Cool Records. Now, the plan had been then to also, over the course of this year, record with these other guys like Peter Greenberg for Barrett Whitfield and the Savages. Want to do a couple of songs with him. Yeah. Also, Graham Day. We were supposed to play overseas, and we were going to go to England, and Graham was going to play on a couple of songs. In fact, he had written a song for the Woggles. Wow. And there's a great band in San Diego called the Schizophonics. Have you guys heard them?
I don't think so.
Well, I do not have enough hands to hold up enough thumbs. Okay. This guy, the guitar player is Pat Beers, and he's completely off the charts. I mean, the first song, he's like doing these James Brown splits and spins and rolling over on his back and leaping off of stuff while he's playing.
Mock show.
Right, and this is just the first song. I mean, this is going on for the whole set. Yeah. So by the end of the set, of course, he's completely just just drenched in sweat, and his wife is the drummer, really, really good drummer, very solid. And for a while, they were having to give Pat these protein shakes because he was losing so much weight. Right? But so he actually wrote a song called Flesh Hammer. So we wanted to do that tune. There's stuff very high energy rock and roll stuff, like think of the most ass kicking MC5 stuff.
Oh wow!
Right? And he's got this kind of sustain going on, feedback sustain, and he's chording with his left hand, but he's just hitting the guitar down here. So you got that, but they can pick two solos out, fine. But it's just a great sound that's going on.
Yeah, now put in a good word for us, Craig. I think we're going to have to be making a call to San Francisco. Sounds like a band I would love.
Oh, it's San Diego.
San Diego, okay.
San Diego, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, you can first check them out online. You'll see them, doing these cartwheels and stuff on stage. Schizophonics. Got that?
Some homework.
Schizophonics.
I got it written.
All right.
So, Manfred, in order to find Woggles, what's the website? Can you give us the website where to go to, or how to get in touch with the band?
It's just thewoggles.com. That's pretty straightforward. And then
I think our listeners can figure that out then.
Well, yeah.
Sure. Your listeners are very smart people. Very smart people. You know what I mean?
I agree. Yes,
they're tuned.
Absolutely.
They're tuned in.
They are tuned in.
Their antennas are right. Yeah. No tinfoil hats.
No.
They're straight up
little antennas.
Unless they're into that, and then we're okay with it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, Wicked Cool Records. Also, you can go to the website. I think for Wicked Cool Records, you can find the catalog.
And let me mention too. Then, so there's the website is thewoggles.com, but we're also present on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. What we're most comfortable with is Facebook. That seems to be the easiest for us. We're not necessarily Luddites, but that's the easiest.
Well, our MySpace page is just about ready, so
you got to launch that sometime soon. Yeah.
Well, if we can get on Napster, we'll have it made.
Absolutely. I don't think there's a way we can share back and forth with Friendster, though, is there?
Yeah.
I've got my Friendster page.
Before we get off here, I do need to ask: do you know Andy Babiuk? Do you know Andy at all?
Babiuk from the Chesterfield Kings, Empty Hearts.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you should ask, because today I should have been interviewing him.
Oh, really?
Right. And, the gal that sets it up, and everybody got back late to each other. So I will, however, speak with him tomorrow.
Awesome.
And we're going to talk about the new Empty Hearts album.
Which I have the last album.
Right.
Which
you know what the new one's called?
No.
The second album.
Fitting.
Unlike
the Wilburys, it's not volume 3.
Oh, man. So I used to work in a record store, right? And that, Wuxtree Records, worked there in Athens first and later in Atlanta. And that, what a nightmare. Absolute nightmare. on the front lines, right?
Yeah.
And these guys coming in, and volume 3 comes out, and they would come in, they say, man, I'm on that traveling Wilbury number 2. I need number 2. And I'd say, I'm sorry, sir, there is no volume 2.
Whoa.
No, man, look, they're 3. I said, they called the second one 3, and you trying to mess with me? It was completely lost on these guys.
Right.
It was so horrible. I was just being the jerk, record store jerk.
Oh yeah.
I won't order it for them.
Well, it's like in High Fidelity. You remember Jack Black? You don't want that record. You don't want that record.
Well, that's the thing. They would come in. These people come in steeled for that, right? They didn't have the benefit of seeing High Fidelity. They just assumed that's what was going on, right?
Yeah.
And I'd have to deal with these guys with chips on their shoulders, or the kid that comes in, and in fact, a Flat Duo Jet story. A guy comes in, he's like, young guy, he's like, oh, loving the Flat Duo Jets, which is great. This is cool.
Yeah.
And he goes, I want to listen to like some like really old school rockabilly. And okay, sure.
Yeah.
All right, sure, old school rockabilly, right? Well, that to me that just means, I guess, the beginnings of rockabilly, right? Whatever,
right.
Sure. And I said, all right, well. Have you ever listened to like Elvis's first recordings? Oh man, not that. Like real rockabilly, old school.
Billy Lee Riley, Red Hot, maybe?
I said, well, all right. So exactly. Here's Billy Lee Riley. And after he heard Elvis, he was doing these recordings, that kind of thing. Right. Whatever.
Oh, yeah. Well, Manfred, thank you so much, brother. Appreciate it. Thank you. And you can, if you need Midwest representatives like Craig and I know, we'll be happy to help you out any way we can. Absolutely. If you're in Louisville or the band's in Louisville.
Where exactly are you guys?
We're in Seymour, Indiana. So
that's right, Indiana, you mentioned that. And so where does Seymour sit?
Right in the middle between Indianapolis and Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay, all right. We were supposed to have played Indianapolis, not last year, but I think the year before.
Yeah.
And I can't think of the place offhand. And our drummer, he just had this weird high blood pressure thing that nobody knew about.
Yeah.
Right. And then all of a sudden he woke up one day and he was like bleeding through his nose.
Oh man.
And we had played the night before in Nashville, and we had to take him to the emergency room. And I mean, we could have kept going, but it's like, this isn't good, you know? And the doctor was like, I can't believe that you're not dead. Oh, wow. Your blood pressure is so high, right? But of course, it had been this like gradually going up over the course of his life. So he was, to him,
you don't realize it.
Yeah. Exactly. So thankfully,
Manfred,
I owe you guys a gig.
Yeah, thank you. That'd be. I live in Salem, which is about 30 miles from Louisville. So we go to Louisville. Louisville used to have a decent music scene going years ago. Some great bands came out. My Morning Jack was kind of the last band that came out of Louisville that was fairly well known. But we used to have some really great Government Cheese, just some great bands out of there.
Yeah. There's some guy from Government Cheese has taken our photos several times. I can't think of his name, but really good guy, right? We played in Nashville the last couple of times. This guy's come out to the shows, and the photos are killer.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sorry I can't remember his name offhand. Okay, well, I know you guys are ready. I'll let you take off.
Peace out. Thank you, Manfred, and keep us in the loop when when the new album comes out. Let us know or keep us up to date. We'll be checking you out on Facebook, and hopefully we can have you back sometime.
I hope so. Take care, guys.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
And